Franz Wagner and Germany weren't great in their quarterfinal win over Greece on Tuesday. But why that win is exactly why we care about these games. I'll explain on Locked On Magic.
You are Locked On Magic, your daily Orlando Magic podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And you are indeed Locked On Magic. Today is August 6th. It will be August 7th, soon enough, 2024. My name is Philip Rossman-Reich. I'm the senior writer over at OrlandoMagicDaily.com. Of course, find me on Twitter at PhilipRR_OMD. On today's episode of Locked On Magic, how Germany showed their championship medal to defeat Greece and why a win like that is exactly why we want Franz Wagner playing these high-pressure games. We'll talk about what Germany did right, what Franz Wagner did right, and how they persevered to get a huge win to reach the semifinal round. We'll get to that, plus a Team USA review coming up here in just a moment. First, we want to thank you again for making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. No matter when you listen to us, whether it's first thing in the morning, whether it's right when we upload, we truly appreciate you making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. Remember, there's a great Locked On podcast covering every single team in the NBA. Just search for Locked On and the team you're looking for. The Locked On Podcast Network, it's your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more as the Olympics wind down and we get to the dead part of the basketball season, of the basketball schedule. You still get to be engaged with great sports like soccer, football, baseball, so much more by checking out FanDuel. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. I get this asked of me a lot. Why is Franz Wagner playing these games? Why is he playing for the national team? Why is he spending his summer playing for a team and trying to fit into a team structure rather than working on his own skills and working on his own abilities? I get this question so many times, and especially within the context of Franz Wagner's shooting, which he was 1 for 6 in this game. Let me double check that real fast. Actually, he didn't shoot the ball well again from 3. There is a legitimate concern about Franz Wagner and his outside shooting ability. 1 for 6. I was right. I remember my stats correctly. He shot 1 for 6 and has not been shooting particularly well from the outside. I get a lot of people saying, why isn't he just in the gym putting up threes instead of spending his time, maybe even wasting his time, playing for his national team? Beyond it's an extreme honor to play for your national team, and especially when you're not in the United States, where basketball is ubiquitous. Franz Wagner is part of the second generation, really the third generation of great Germans, but he's part of the Dirk Nowitzki generation, the generation that grew up watching Dirk Nowitzki. There's going to be a future generation of German basketball players who grew up watching Franz Wagner, and that influence, I will never take that away from anyone. If you can play for your national team, go play for your national team. It is an honor. It is an experience. Go do it. But beyond that, this is organized basketball. This is a player being put in a situation where he has to fit within a team and play meaningful basketball. Tuesday's win for Germany, they won the game pretty handily, 76-63. They pulled away in the fourth quarter for what looked like a comfortable win. Franz Wagner had a team-high 18 points, did a lot of things really, really well. But Tuesday's victory for Germany was not easy. It was not easy like the other games in their group were, like their win over Japan, the win over Brazil, the win over France. This was a game where there was struggle. And these are the games that matter. The elimination games particularly are the ones that matter because there is nothing that can simulate playoff pressure, that can simulate elimination game pressure. When you have to win, when you have to find a way and you have a bad day, this is exactly what Franz Wagner needs. Franz Wagner promised us in that small media room in Cleveland at Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse. I was sitting in the second row when he said this. He promised us that game, that 1-for-15 showing in Game 7, would stay with him. That would be something that he would make sure wouldn't happen again. That he would be better because of what happened in Cleveland. And that's been the question that Magic fans have had all offseason long. Because yes, the Magic gave him the max. He is going to be a max player after this season. They put that investment in him. And now he has to go out and prove everything all over again. And that's what he did Tuesday morning in the East Coast, Tuesday afternoon in Paris. On a night when his team didn't have it. They're down by 10 early against Greece. Giannis Antetokounmpo is Giannis Antetokounmpoing all over them. Getting downhill, getting to the basket, putting pressure on them. They're collapsing the paint. They're not making shots. The ball's not moving. Germany looked bad. This was the worst game Germany has played during the Olympics so far. But none of it mattered. Even though the shot wasn't falling from outside for Franz. Even though Greece was walling him up and forcing turnovers and forcing him to make passes and to double check what he's doing. Franz Wagner still found a way to compete and still found a way to impact the game. He scored 18 points. He was plus 10 in the game. In a game that they won by 13. In a game that they trailed by 10 early, and he was part of them trailing by 10. This was not a pretty affair at all. This was not, if you go back and watch the game on Peacock, this was not a clean game at all. This was an ugly grind game. The kind of game that the Magic love to play, by the way. A game where you just had to find a little bit of offense here and there. And some of the usual weapons during this Olympics weren't there. Dennis Schroeder, 13 points, 5 for 12 shooting. They got 10 points from Johannes Tiemann, but Franz Wagner, 18 points, 8 for 17 shooting, 7 for 11 from 2 on 2-point shots. That's not what he did in Game 7, by the way. Franz and Germany had to find a way to win this. There were no excuses. There is no tomorrow without a victory. Just ask Canada. They had to find a way to win. And not only did they find a way to win, eventually tying the game by halftime, they took their hits. They got punched pretty hard. But they found their way to get back every time. And in the fourth quarter, they outlasted Greece. If you're wondering why Franz Wagner is in Paris, playing for the German national team, why it's important for the Orlando Magic, he's there for national pride. Should absolutely be there. Don't question that. But why is this important for the Orlando Magic? Because when the Magic get into playoff situations, when they're in pressure games, when they're in must-win games like, say, Game 6, a Game 7 again, that's that Game 82 when they had to win against Milwaukee, the play-in tournament against the Boston Celtics, when they're in New York, whenever that game is, when they're hosting Philadelphia and they have to win that game to advance. These are the experiences that will help Franz Wagner play better in those games. Just like playing in Eurobasket and playing in the World Cup made Franz Wagner a better basketball player for the Orlando Magic and made him more prepared to play in those pressure games. Just like the Game 7 failure likely was ringing in his head when he played in this must-win game and will be there again when he plays on Thursday against France in the semifinals. And then hopefully, and then the bronze medal game or the gold medal game on Saturday. Those experiences make him better. And if Tuesday's ugly game is any indication, he learned a lot from those experiences. I've been telling you guys since I started watching Germany more regularly and their games became a little bit more accessible. Outside of three-point shooting, which, yes, is a concern. I'm not going to pretend it's not. Franz Wagner has gotten better at every element of his game. He has taken that loss in Game 7 to heart. And if he has more games like this one where he's just grinding and finding his way and finding those pockets to score, even if they come in bunches, whatever it takes to help his team win, he will have taken the lessons that he needed to take from Game 7. This is why he's in these games. This is why he's playing in the Olympics. This is why this stuff is important and why I'm putting attention on it. Not only because there's nothing else going on. Sorry. It's important because pressure games are irreplaceable. Having to be in must-win games, in pressure situations, and performing in them, that is something you cannot replicate. Look, God love Paolo Banchero. He played at the Zeke End in Seattle over the weekend. We got some fancy highlights. He's playing with Klay Thompson. They won the championship, but that ain't the Olympics. Paolo Banchero is not getting pressure reps like Franz Wagner is. Maybe Paolo doesn't need it. But all of this will make Franz Wagner a better player. So too will the attitude and the experience that this German national team has, because this wasn't just about Franz Wagner. Germany's success is the same formula that the Magic want to succeed in as well. I'll talk a little bit about that coming up here in just a moment. But first, today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by our friends over at BetterHelp. Look, we all have to take care of ourselves. And, we all have to find ways to kind of lift ourselves up. It's a crazy world out there. We have to take self-care. We have to do self-care. We have to have non-negotiables for our self-care. For me, something I like to do, I set a day every month. I go to Disney. I go to Universal. I don't turn the phone off, but I try to turn everything off and just go ride some rides. Get the sugar rush of some food and some rides. That helps even me out. And the Olympics are cramping my style a little bit. I'm a few weeks over. I'm a little itchy about it. I'm eager to get to the parks on Monday if you want to hang out. We all have to find something that lets us kind of release those emotions and take care of ourselves. Even when we know something makes us happy, it can be hard to make time for it. But when you feel like you have no time for yourself, non-negotiables like some self-care routines or like therapy are more important than ever. I've used therapy throughout really my entire life. It has helped me learn how to regulate and control my emotions, know how to deal with stimulus, learn how to deal with adverse things in my life and persevere through them and come out a better person. Therapy is something that I cannot recommend more to you, whether it's finding someone that you know or going through a place like BetterHelp. If you're thinking of starting therapy, BetterHelp is really the place to try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. All you have to do is fill out a brief questionnaire. You get matched with a licensed therapy. And if it doesn't work out, you can switch therapists so easily for no additional charge. Never skip therapy day with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. We want to thank you for making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. For your second listen, enjoy the Locked On NBA podcast. As we all know, there is no offseason in the NBA, and Locked On NBA provides daily basketball analysis from national and local experts in 30 minutes or less. No one keeps you as informed and entertained as Locked On NBA. It's available on YouTube or wherever you get podcasts, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. One thing we're all thinking about, I think, as Magic fans, is how do you build a championship team? Like that's the central question of everything. What are the characteristics of a championship team? And it's right now, obviously, talent is a big piece of it. The Magic are betting a lot on continuity, and you really can't blame them for believing continuity and familiarity is a superpower. It is something that has elevated this team. It is something that has helped the Magic get better year over year. Familiarity with the coaches, familiarity with each other. It is a superpower. It gives them, it feels like a leg up on their competition. But obviously it's not just about that. And as I'm watching Germany play, and sorry, this has become Locked On Germany. That's all good. We have a lot of Magic players on there, but we'll do a pod with Locked On Nets at some point, I'm sure. For Dennis Schroeder. When we look at the way Germany plays, it feels very similar to kind of what the Magic are building. When I watched Germany play on Tuesday, the biggest thing that stood out to me was that their attitude and the way that they play didn't change. Yes, the shots weren't falling. Yes, Greece was being physical and defending them really well. Yes, Schroeder was not getting the penetration that he usually gets. Franz was getting stonewalled. And yet, it didn't feel like Germany was changing how they approached the game. They knew it's a long game. They know it's a long game. They know what they're capable of doing. They looked at that problem and ducked their head and kept going. And a lot of that comes from two things. First, it's the trust that everybody has with each other. Like the Orlando Magic, for Germany, these Olympics have been a 3-year journey. Starting at Eurobasket 2 summers ago when they won the bronze medal, continuing to the World Cup last summer when they won the gold, and entering this year when they are they are a favorite to medal. They will play for a medal for the first time in the country's history at the Olympics. You see that familiarity and you see that trust really build. But more than that, what I sensed from Germany, and maybe some of my German listeners can agree or disagree on this, but what I sensed from that German team is true championship mettle. Go watch the Boston Celtics in some of the games that they played. Go watch the best teams in the NBA. They are unbothered by their opponent. They know if they take care of their business, if they do their jobs, if they do what they're supposed to do, they will ultimately come out on top. They will ultimately be the winners because they know they are good enough that if they take care of their business, they'll win. Plain and simple. That's something they know about themselves. And for Germany, you can tell that they've won. And I think this is going to be the interesting thing to watch and follow about this Magic team. Because, Jamal Mosley's talked about this on a couple of radio appearances. This is going to be a different season. For this upcoming Magic season, no, the Magic aren't sneaking up on anybody, first off. They're a team that everyone recognizes as a playoff team. They are dealing with expectations for the first time. They've got to meet, external expectations, internal expectations. They know what they're capable. It's not even just the expectation stuff. They know what they're capable of doing now. So what happens when you're not meeting that internal standard? How do you respond? Well, championship teams, they win even if they're not playing up to their standard because they're that good. The championship teams don't waver. They don't complain. They don't get frustrated. They don't get flustered. They get to work. And against Greece on Tuesday afternoon, I don't know if we're going by Paris time or Orlando time, in Tuesday's quarterfinal game, I saw a German team that did not blink. Greece put the hammer to them early. They made shots. Giannis got downhill. Giannis, an amazing player. Greece did all the things early on that they had to do to build an early 10-point lead. Germany was not doing any of the things they had to do. They were missing shots. They were struggling to move the ball. Greece was playing great defense. And like a Dragon Ball Z villain, Germany just kind of wiped the blood off the side of their mouth and looked at it and said, that's it? That's all you got? And then they didn't put the hammer down. I don't want to say that they put the hammer down, but they kept going. They kept playing, they kept grinding, and they did the job. At the end of the day, we can complain about Franz Wagner shooting all we want. We could say, oh, he needs to do X, Y, Z better. Germany as a team will certainly look at the tape and say, we need to do X, Y, Z better. But at this stage of the tournament, it's win and it's survive and advance. Nothing else matters. All that matters is Germany has another game on Thursday. And that's, to me, what championship medal is. That, to me, is the sign that this Germany team, they're not still celebrating their World Cup title. They're using that as fuel. They're using that as experience. They're using that as something that will help the team grow. And again, you want to ask why it's important that Franz Wagner is at the Olympics. It's, yes, to be in these pressure situations and these pressure games. It's to gain that perspective and experience too. It's to understand, okay, we could celebrate what we did last year, but we know we have to use that experience as a launching pad. We have to rebuild everything, get back to work, and understand what it takes to win. He's learning what it takes to win, not only with the Magic, but he's learning what it takes to win at a high level. And this isn't maybe the NBA playoffs exactly, but these are high-level games. These are high-pressure games. We can't sit here and ignore what Germany's doing, what Franz Wagner is doing in these games. These are games where the results matter, and Franz Wagner was the leading scorer in an elimination game against a quality opponent in Greece. And Germany is a team that was unbothered by adversity. And I think, honestly, that's what a champion is made of. That's why they are champions. That's why they are the defending World Cup champions. They're not sitting here celebrating that victory anymore. Instead, they're using that experience to win again, to build on that victory. And that's why they're a real threat to beat the U.S. They're a real threat to win the gold medal. Don't overlook France on Thursday. That's going to be a heck of a game. Don't overlook France on Thursday, who just beat a very good Canada team with a mixed-up starting lineup. They're still figuring some stuff out. But that is a good France team. The game will not be as easy, and it's obviously a road game. It will not be as easy as that game was Friday. Germany's got to do it again. But again, this is a team that knows past success doesn't guarantee future success. But past success gives you the experience and the understanding of how to succeed again. And credit to Coach Herbert, credit to everyone on that German team. They seem to have built on their success and their gold medal. And if Franz Wagner and Mo Wagner, because we haven't talked enough about Mo Wagner, if those two players can bring that experience back to Orlando, bring that perspective back to Orlando, the Magic are going to be able to match what they did last year. And again, that's why these games are important. That's why these games matter. That's why this experience matters. And that's why what Franz and Mo Wagner are getting with Team Germany has been amazing for them and for the team. Of course, looming in the shadows is Team USA. We'll talk about how Team USA put in perhaps their best performance in an absolute rout of Brazil in a day of really great games. The U.S. ended it on a stinker, dominating Brazil. We'll talk about what Team USA did coming up here in just a moment. But first, today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Look, I love sports, but as the Olympics begin to wind down, we're running out of sports to talk about. The NFL and college football are still a few weeks away. We got Major League Baseball. We got some soccer still going on. Leagues Cup, Go City going on as well. But just because the sports aren't sportsing like we want them to, FanDuel lets you keep it going whenever you want. All you have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime you're in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. If you want to get in on NBA futures, those are currently up on FanDuel as well. You can get the Orlando Magic at over under 47.5 wins. You can get the Magic at plus 2,000 to win the Eastern Conference. It's 200-1 odds for those that don't know those stats. If you want to bet on the Magic to win the Southeast Division, They're at minus 140. Heavy favorites to win the Southeast Division. Miami Heat are at plus 140. If you want to talk Olympics, the Olympics, you can even get in on Olympic basketball games coming up here soon. You can get USA minus 26.5 for their game against Nigeria. Noah Lyles currently minus 700 to win the 200-meter sprint. All of that available on FanDuel. So head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most of your summer. FanDuel is the official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. Obviously, we're talking a lot about Germany. We are based in the U.S. I want to talk USA basketball a little bit, even though there's no Magic players on that team. The U.S. probably playing the weakest of the teams remaining in the tournament. No offense to Brazil. But boy, if you've listened to me on this show, I have been critical of USA basketball. I have not been super impressed with how this team has come together. Even in this game, there were some weak spots, but the U.S. put the hammer down on Brazil early and did not look back. To me, this quarterfinal game, now that we're in the knockout round, this to me was the best the U.S. has looked all tournament long. They just looked dialed in defensively, dialed in off, not completely dialed in offensively, but dialed in defensively. Joel Embiid was 5 for 6 for 14 points. Anthony Edwards, 17 points. LeBron had 12, Durant, 11, Devin Booker, 18, Anthony Davis, 13. Like everybody, for the first time in a while, if really for the first time this whole tournament, everybody just seemed to fit perfectly into place. And the defense, again, everything for Team USA starts with their defense. Their depth allows them to defend at a higher level, and they have the potential to be devastating defensively. That's one of the things Germany's really good at, but they don't have the depth that the U.S. does to really get after you and pressure you. And then punish you for mistakes and turnovers the way that the U.S. does. That's kind of the U.S. style. This was just a dominant performance, and so dominant, in fact, that maybe by the middle of the second quarter, late second quarter, you could kind of see the U.S.'s attention wear off, and they're throwing the ball around and they're trying to do a little bit too much. But the U.S. are obviously a juggernaut. If your three favorites to win the tournament are the U.S., Germany, and Canada. Well, Canada lost to France. They're out. They're not playing anymore. Germany played their worst game of the tournament in the quarterfinals against a good Greece team. France is probably better than Greece overall, but they played their worst game of the tournament. France played their best game of the tournament to beat Canada. The U.S., they looked really good, and again, they didn't have to put in a crazed effort to win this game and to put Brazil away. This was a really good team, and this shows you why the U.S. are such heavy favorites. Germany is a good team. I want to make this really, really clear. Germany is a very good team. But to beat the U.S., Germany still has to play really well. Franz Wagner cannot have the game that he had on Tuesday to beat the U.S. If Franz Wagner goes 8 for 17 and 1 for 6 from 3, Germany's not beating the U.S., plain and simple. Dennis Schroeder was 5 for 12. If he shoots like that against the U.S. is going to win by 20, 25 points. The margin for error against the U.S. is still incredibly small, even though Germany is a better defensive team. And obviously, I think we're all hoping we get to see Germany versus the U.S. because, it's one thing for Nick Kalathis to guard Franz Wagner. It'll be another thing if it's Kevin Durant or if it's Derek White or Jason Tatum or LeBron James even guarding Franz Wagner. I'm sure all those guys, if the U.S. faces Germany in the gold medal game, I'm sure all those guys are going to be fighting over who gets to defend Franz Wagner, who gets first crack at Franz Wagner, because they know they got to cut him off if they want to win with any ease. And obviously that'll be a big statement of okay, can you step your game up, Franz? In the playoffs, we saw him step up his game with a big game 4 and a big game 6, but obviously had a bad game 7, had a okay game 5. Obviously the block in game 5 was bad. Franz, we'll learn a lot more about Franz Wagner when he gets to play the U.S. Hopefully on Saturday. But this U.S. team is obviously very, 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 very good. And the way that they dismantled Brazil was just downright impressive. Again, you expect it from them. Again, honestly, this is what I would say. the way we perceive Team USA, that's what we got Tuesday. Obviously, it'll be a different challenge. They play Serbia, who squeaked by Australia in overtime on Tuesday. They'll play Serbia on Thursday. Rematch. Both games are rematches of group play games. So we'll see if there are different results. The U.S. beat Serbia pretty handily, but Serbia is a very good team. Germany beat France pretty handily, but France is also a pretty good team. So we'll see how those games turn out in rematches on Thursday. And we'll, of course, cover both of those games here on the pod Friday, Thursday. I'll try and record it again. I'm recording this at about 7 p.m. Probably record it around that time again on Thursday. So we'll have an early episode leading into Friday. But that's going to do it for me today. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. Of course, find me on Twitter at PhilipRR_OMD. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Himalaya, Google Play, Spotify, Odyssey, and all the fun ways to know podcasts to your podcast-enabled listening device. For the latest on the Orlando Magic, be sure to check out OrlandoMagicDaily.com. You can find us there on Twitter at OMagicDaily. And for even more Orlando Magic content, be sure to check out my Patreon page, the Orlando Magic Hub, at patreon.com/Orlando Magic Hub. And as always, thank you for your support. Now that you're done listening to me, be sure to check out the Locked On NBA podcast, where the season never ends, providing national expertise with a local perspective. Want even more on the games today, on the Olympic quarterfinals? Locked On NBA will have you covered. You can find the link to Locked On NBA in the description, so you don't need to search. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. That's going to do it for me today, though. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic for Orlando Magic Daily and Locked On Magic. This has been Philip Rossman. On our next episode of Locked On Magic, we will chat next steps for the Orlando Magic. We'll get into some potential trade discussions and where the Magic go next, because I've been getting a lot of that. We'll talk a little bit about that. But until then, for Orlando Magic Daily and Locked On Magic, this has been Philip Rossman. We'll see you all again next time for another episode of Locked On Magic.